Hello everyone. Today we are going to be covering the 6 perks that released off of the Chains of Hate DLC. The 3 Survivor and the 3 Killer. I'm going to start with Survivor first, being a bit stronger on Survivor than Killer. We're going to cover these topics because I wanted to give this patch enough time to fill itself out, to really have a good analysis on how these perks are used in-game. So, first thing we want to start off with is I need to do a quick explanation as to how my perk tier lists work. I view perks in A, B, C, D, E. Okay? So, your A perks are must-have perks that you should be running at least one of these at all time. So, a great example of a perk like that would be something like Dead Hard. Dead Hard is a perk that makes it that just, if it works, it works. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card for you. There's no reason why you should not run this. Or a perk similar to it in A tier. A B tier perk is a perk that has some good significant value, but your chance of getting it to work in-game is not particularly the strongest. The benefit provides is significant, but it's not the greatest. An example I will use is Unbreakable. Unbreakable is a very strong perk. It enables you not only to recover from the dying state, but it also enables you to get up once per game on your own from the dying state. The issue with the perk and why it's not an A tier perk is this requires the killer to slug you, even if it's just for a few moments. So the value that you get out of this perk depends entirely upon how long you are left on the ground for. If the killer doesn't leave you on the ground, you have absolutely no value whatsoever out of this perk. That's why it's B tier. Another perk we're going to look at, going down into C tier, is going to be Flip Flop. Flip Flop is a great perk if it works, but it's not on the same level of Unbreakable. See, Unbreakable provides a guaranteed one-time escape from dying if the killer slugs you. It also lets you recover faster. Therefore, you're going to be able to get up that much quicker. Flip-Flop makes it so that a portion of your recovery meter is converted into wiggle meter. The issue with this is that A, it does not provide the guaranteed up that Unbreakable does. This requires the killer to pick you up, and then for you to be able to then wiggle off. If you're right next to a hook, you're not going to get any value out of this perk. At the same time, this perk becomes less and less effective the higher up you go, when most killers don't tend to pick you up. That being said, it does provide enough of a benefit where if you can wiggle off a few times, it gives you some good value. Then we're able to move down, further down into the rabbit hole onto the D tier perks. Perks that have a benefit, but the benefit is not strong enough to warrant it being run. A great example of this would be Wake Up. Wake Up is a perk that does not activate until the exit gates are powered. This means that for the first 3/4 of the game, you are running with just 3 perks. Now, you can compare this to a perk like Adrenaline, which gives you a guaranteed sprint burst for 5 seconds, instantly heals 1 health state if need be, and overrides any exhaustion perk that you have when the exit gate is powered, versus slightly opening the exit gate and being able to see the exit gates. This is clearly better than this. That's why it's a C tier perk. The space that it occupies is not worth it, but you can get some value out of it. This is comparing this to a perk such as Solidarity, which is an E tier perk. Solidarity is a very poor perk. It just is. Solidarity makes it so that when you heal another survivor without a medkit while you are injured, mind you, that's 3 separate caveats, you will get a portion of the amount that you heal for. Now, in most cases, if you're injured and you're healing another survivor without a medkit, they are then going to turn around and heal you, which makes this perk useless. You would get more value out of a perk like Botany Knowledge, which affects healing items as well. Anyway, so that is just an example of how to score perks. Now we're going to talk about Zarina's perks. I want to start with what I think is the laziest of the 6 perks that released this DLC. Of course, it is the highest perk that I have on her. It is off the record. Now, Off the Record is quite a lazy perk because it combines two perks that are already in the game, limits the effectiveness of it, and puts a time limit on it. So first off, this perk does not activate until you are unhooked from a hook, whether you unhook yourself or otherwise. Now, you are putting this in the same category as all of the other perks that require you to be unhooked, such as Deliverance, Decisive Strike, or Breakdown. All three of those perks are better perks in my opinion. Decisive is, I wouldn't say a guaranteed. If you miss the skill check, well, oh well. Or if you get slugged, oh well. But it's an opportunity to escape the killer's grasp for the next 60 seconds. Deliverance is a guaranteed ability to get off the hook so long as you have a previous safe hook rescue. And Breakdown enables you to break a hook when you are off the hook, so it can't be used again for another 3 minutes. Off the Record is a combination of two far superior perks, but it only activates for 60, 70, or 80 seconds. It combines a perk of Jake's, which is Iron Will. Where's that at? Iron Will, by the way, I do not have tier 3 Iron Will, my apologies, but Iron Will is a perk that enables you to reduce the noise made by you being injured by up to 100% at tier 3. Well, Off the Record does that. But Off the Record does that for 80 seconds after you get unhooked, which means you only get that benefit for a total of 160 seconds in-game, versus Iron Will working the entire game. And the perk Distortion, which is a teachable off of Jeff. This makes it so that anytime your aura would be revealed to the killer, unless you are in a bear trap or the dying state, a token is consumed instead of your aura being revealed. So, countering Barbecue, Bitter Murmur, Nurses, I'm All Ears, certain killer add-ons, etc. This perk makes it so that, basically, you get 3 tokens. You have to figure out what perk they're running so you know how to avoid it. For example, if you're on the opposite side of the map and you lose a token, you know the killer's running Barbecue, so if you want to keep your tokens, you can get into a locker next time. If you're healing in the killer's terror radius, well, clearly you know that it's either an add-on or Nurses. If you perform a fast vault action, Wall and Chase, then clearly you know he has I'm All Ears. Zarina, both of Zarina's perks, both of these perks are combined into a limited time only effect. This is a very lazy perk to run because you can legitimately run the other 2 perks, just one of the other 2 perks, and get more value than this. Both of those perks don't have an activation cost that this does. They don't require you to be hooked. They also don't have a time limit. You either keep Iron Will until you heal up or die, or you run out of distortion tokens by having your aura revealed enough times. Now, while this perk does work in the event you want to use Nurse's Calling, I highly doubt that a killer is going to... You're going to be able to heal in a killer's terror radius, get injured, break chase, and then heal again in their terror radius twice in the span of 80 seconds. This perk is a very weak D-tier perk in my opinion. One way I would fix this I would make this a lot stronger. First off, I would make it so that after you are unhooked or escape from the hook, the aura of any generators that you are on cannot be revealed. The aura of the survivor who unhooks you cannot be revealed. This perk, I think, could just use a complete rework as well. You could turn this into a perk where failing a generator, instead of giving the killer a noise notification at the generator you are at, instead causes a noise notification at a different generator on the opposite and a certain distance away from you instead, with this effect only occurring for a specific amount of great skill checks that you hit. So for people like me who tend to go for great skill checks and can sometimes miss 1 or 2, it can be a very high-risk, high-reward type perk. And that would actually fit very well with her other perk we're going to cover next, which is Red Herring. Red Herring is designed to be a buff to generator and locker type perks. The way this perk works is after repairing a generator for 3 seconds, the generator's aura is highlighted in yellow. The generator will stay highlighted until you either fully repair it, start touching a new generator, or enter a locker. When it's fully repaired or you touch a new generator, this will disable it because you won't be able to use it until you, well, get another gen up by 3 seconds. Or entering a locker, which will activate it. Whenever you enter a locker, you will trigger a loud noise notification at the generator that you were working on location, and it possesses a 60-second cooldown. Now, this perk is a C tier perk. This can potentially work well with perks like Head On, Inner Strength, Quick and Quiet, Dancing, and basically all of your locker-related perks. However, it's also pretty weak. First off, if you repaired a generator at the beginning of the game, got chased off it, and then randomly get into a locker to try and get the killer off you, you may be bringing the killer over to a bunch of other survivors trying to get the generator that you started up, which could ultimately be the downfall of the team, particularly against certain area of effect killers such as the Doctor or Leatherface, who are able to take out a wide number of survivors at a single time. It sounds like a weird statement, but one chainsaw run with potato survivors can basically spell the end of the game. Another disadvantage to this is it doesn't provide a strong enough advantage. It just provides a loud noise notification. The same noise notification that you get off of Diversion. Which, Diversion is not very good, but Diversion has a secondary benefit of letting you know when you're in the killer's terror radius, and it can distract some weaker killers. It also has scratch marks and a loud noise notification, which is more than what Red Herring does. Red Herring also has a cooldown. This is prevented from the spam annoying the killer, whereas Diversion has to be earned by a survivor by being stealthy in the terror radius. This perk has no reasonable value unless you're planning on running Head On and Quick and Quiet with it, which, instead of running Decisive, which is a far better perk to run with that combination, you're running this. I would say that the best fix that you could probably do for this perk would be to make it so that the killer cannot regress the generator while this perk is on cooldown. That would be a perk that I would then consider running. So you would be getting the killer's attention and potentially bringing them over to a generator, but the killer would not be able to do anything to the generator. For example, if they kick the gen, it would not apply the effects of overcharge, pop, or just straight up kicking it. It would also make it so that this perk could not activate off of something like Ruin or Thrilling Tremors. You couldn't just run over to a locker and try and get the killer over to a generator that's blocked with Thrilling Tremors, because that would deactivate this. Making it so that for as long as this perk is on cooldown also makes this a very high risk, high reward. Mind you, the cooldown right now is 60 seconds at tier 1. That cooldown drops to 40 seconds at tier 3. This means the real benefit you would get would be that the killer could not damage for 40 seconds. The issue with that is that, yes, you would have the cooldown back and could use this perk again, but then the killer has more time to get over to the generator now and kick it. The last perk, which is arguably her best perk, is For the People. For the People is a perk that is basically an insta-heal while you are fully healthy. While you're full health, press E while healing another survivor, or X on PS4, and it will cause that survivor to go from injured to healthy or dying to injured. It will cause you to be broken for the next 90 to 110 seconds. So roughly a minute and a half to just short of 2 minutes. Very similar to Deliverance, only it doesn't work off the broken effect. This insta-heal ability also turns you into the Obsession. Now, that caveat we're not going to talk about. I don't really want to mess around with Obsession perks too much and say, oh, this shouldn't be an Obsession perk, because I think you could maybe make a build around it. For example, running this perk and Decisive to make yourself the Obsession if you fear dying light for whatever reason. This perk is incredibly powerful. The downside is that most of the time you will get injured if you're trying to get an insta-heal in front of the killer's face, thus negating your ability to get that survivor up. This ability also does not work as intended if the survivor doesn't hold still. If they're crawling away, then you can't get them up. If they're running away after you unhook them, it doesn't work. The sheer power is great, but it also makes you permanently injured for the next up to 2 minutes, pretty much. That's 2 minutes of you being susceptible to the killer, unable to do anything. Very similar to Deliverance and being a high-risk, high-reward style perk that just automatically... This perk is that it has a limited effectiveness to it. If you're not playing in a squad, you get little benefit out of For the People. So, the thing that I would want to mention most when it comes to For the People is you have to plan around this perk very carefully. If you're going to use it, I would recommend something like Deliverance, and Dead Hard is a very good 1-2 combo so that you don't immediately die. You can make a hook rescue, heal the survivor with For the People so that you become broken, get your Dead Hard up so that you have that to juke the killer, and if you get Deliverance, you can then use Deliverance to get yourself off hook. Mind you, you're still going to be broken from For the People, so Deliverance has no penalty to it whatsoever, and the killer's not going to be expecting it as well. What I would say this perk could use to get a benefit is if it added the ability to potentially weaken you and use it while you're injured. For example, if you use this while you're injured on another survivor, it would cause you to get the deep wounds effect and have a 5-second bleed out timer. This means if you're trying to use it in the killer's face, it's not going to work. Or if you could potentially if you can use this on a survivor and give them the endurance status effect in addition to it. I think it needs a slight buff, but I'm afraid to change it really for unbalancing it. Now we're going to be talking about killer. Now, oh boy. Well, Billy Ray Cyrus over here is, he's a good killer. His perks ain't too good. First off, let's talk about what all three of his perks basically are. Hex Retribution fits into the Band-Aid for Hex Totems. Considering all Hex Totems are designed to be high risk, high reward, this is a Band-Aid for it. This is in the exact same boat as Thrill of the Hunt and Haunted Ground, and gives us a third protection perk for totems. It's not as good. Haunted Ground directly punishes survivors by making all of the survivors exposed. So a killer who is relying on their power, for example, let's say Huntress, who's relying on hatchets in order to get downs, because she knows as soon as she hits someone in close range, they're going to sprint burst away, and she's going to be forced to using hatchets again, is going to be able to get the value out of this. Another great example of Haunted Ground is that Haunted Ground makes it so that, okay, I'm playing Wraith. I have to hit a survivor 2 times no matter what. Haunted Ground now activates, well, I've cut that down to 1. Saving a good amount of chase. Hex Retribution doesn't do that. It does not cut down chase time at all. Or protect totems by exposing survivors. Thrill of the Hunt reveals whenever a totem is being touched by giving you a noise notification that says, "Save me, help me, strange man touching me, help." It also slows down how quick they can do it, and it gives you bonus blood points for that. Yeah, this perk doesn't do that. This perk is basically Nemesis meets Thrill of the Hunt. Whenever they cleanse a totem, they get either an aura reveal or oblivious effect, depending on what type of totem they cleanse. It also gives away that you are running this perk immediately. This perk by itself is also trash. And let's be clear on that. If you do not run another Hex Totem with this, it's trash. It is not even worth it with dull totems, like Noed. It's not. Because I think that this should just be a default perk. It should not even be a Hex perk. And they could fix this. But anyways, anytime a survivor cleanses a dull totem, they will suffer from the oblivious effect for 40 seconds. Whenever a survivor cleanses a Hex Totem, their aura of all survivors is revealed for up to 15 seconds. Now, Here's the problem with this. First off, as a killer, this perk is meant to protect totems. Wait, no, I'm sorry. That's Thrill of the Hunt. This perk is meant to punish people. Wait, no, sorry. That's Haunted Grant. Oh! This perk is meant to mildly inconvenience a survivor. So if you're already in chase with another survivor, you get no benefit from the aura reveal. If survivors are hiding in lockers because you've hooked somebody, and they're afraid of barbecue, well, the person on the hook, you already know where they are, and the person who cleansed the totem, I guess, is revealed? Generally, this perk is only going to work on giving you knowledge on what 1 or 2 people might be doing for up to 15 seconds. It's also completely countered by distortion, so if you run into a Jeff, you're probably going to lose this perk. On top of that, it makes it so that a survivor cleansing a dull totem will suffer from the oblivious effect, so they can't hear your terror radius, even though you're a small terror radius killer who more than likely is running monitor and abuse. So I don't think you need much help there. It doesn't do much. This perk would be a lot stronger if it imposed an actual penalty to survivors. For example, if this perk made it so that whenever a survivor cleanses a dull totem, the next totem that they try and cleanse, they have a slower speed on it by, say, 50% until they cleanse the totem. Or they could make this perk so that it would instead activate not as a hex perk, but it's just an active ability. So every single totem on the map is affected by this. And you could run this on dull totems as well, giving a minor oblivious effect just by cleansing totems, even if you're not running something like Noed. Or, I got an even better idea. They could make this an actual hex perk that when you cleanse this perk, it instantly causes the entity to block all other totems on the map for a limited duration. Basically turning this into Thrilling Tremors for hex totems. Yeah, that's great. You know where the Noed is, but you accidentally cleanse Retribution, and now for the next 60 seconds, no one can cleanse a totem. Imagine that in Endgame. Imagine Noed, Blood Warden, Retribution in an Endgame, if that's what it is. Toxic killers would love that. And I'm all for that because this perk is shit. You have to run Devour to get some effectiveness out of it. And if the survivors manage to cleanse Devour instead of this perk now does nothing! This perk is an absolute garbage tier perk that you can only get value out of by pairing with other perks, and even then has a mild effect. The next perk I want to talk about is Gearhead. Oh god, poor Gearhead. This perk is just shit, so this got nerfed since PTV. First off, you have to activate this similar to Spirit Fury in that you have to hit a survivor twice to get it to activate. That is very easy. Sweet. So, what do I get for this very simple perk? I get a poor man's Bitter Murmur. Or a poor man's Rancor. Or a poor man's Discordance. Or a poor man's Surveillance. Or a poor man's Thrilling Tremors. There are 5 other perks in the game that does this. And does it better. Basically, anytime a survivor hits a good skill check, not a great skill check or a failed skill check, just a good one, while repairing the generator, mind you, that's 20 to 30 seconds, the generator will be revealed in yellow as long as it's being repaired. This perk has utterly no value. You will get more value out of Thrilling Tremors, which I don't think I have on him. Do I have it? I don't have it. You'll get more value out of Thrilling Tremors than you will this perk. You'll get more value out of Bitter Murmur than you will this perk. You'll get more value out of Rancor than you will that perk. This perk does nothing. And it's even outmatched by another perk in its category in Dead Man's Switch, which has a much better payoff for a little bit more limited use. Which we'll cover that next. Gearhead is very bad. I don't think you understand how bad this perk is. So first off, the fact that there are, of the 3 possible outcomes when you hit a skill check, that 2 of them are completely unaffected by this perk, is the first problem. This should affect every time a survivor gets a skill check, you should receive an information. Secondly, this perk only works as long as the gen is being repaired. So if you can't force a survivor off a generator within 30 seconds, which is the second problem, it also activates immediately after hitting someone twice. So unless you down a survivor, which then activates it, now you have to pick up and carry that survivor to a hook. Let's say they went down right in front of the hook. That's still 5 seconds. You have now wasted approximately 25% you've wasted 25 to 30% of your time with this perk simply based off of the fact that you had to hook the survivor that you downed. Well, if you leave them on the ground, they can get up in 30 seconds with Unbreakable or another survivor coming over. So there's no value to that. This perk serves no purpose. This perk needs a complete overhaul in my opinion. Now, considering there are already 5 other tracking perks in the game based around generators, I don't think they need to do it, but I think it could work in an interesting way. Gearhead could be activated whenever you hit a survivor twice with your basic attack. It could be hitting the same survivor. The next 2 skill checks that you get as a survivor will automatically regress the generator by 10%. This would force survivors to either gen tap or just straight up not do generators for the duration. And it would deactivate off the original survivor. This perk is just trash. The best of his perks is Deadman Switch, and that's not saying a lot. Deadman Switch could be B tier in my opinion. I put it in the same boat as Thrilling Tremors. Believe it or not, this perk works well with Ruin, even though you get no value off of it. With Ruin, you are generally trying to chase survivors off the generators so that the generators regress. This perk works similarly. So you become obsessed with one survivor. When you hook the obsession, the perk activates for the next 40, I think it's up to 45 seconds. I think it's 35, 40, 45. But up to 45 seconds. And the way this perk works is that when a survivor stops repairing a generator, mind you, that's not gets off it. If 2 survivors are working on one generator and one stops to go for the save, it kicks everyone off the generator. So it makes it so that the entity blocks the generator for the duration. Now, mind you, Thrilling Tremors works when you pick up a survivor, and it blocks the gen for 16 seconds, and has a cooldown. This perk doesn't have that effect, but you can only get it off of hooking the obsession, which means you're only going to be using this 3 times a game, unless you're able to move the obsession around. So that brings perks such as Nemesis into the fray, or if you want to eat a decisive, it does work quite well with this. The issue is that just simply blocking the generator doesn't do anything. And there's no way to force them off a gen on certain killers. So unless they're trying to repair a generator right in front of your face and you're able to shoot at them to force them off the gen, you get no value out of this perk as well. This perk should automatically kick all survivors off of a gen when it's being worked on. If a gen is not being worked on, it should be unaffected by the perk. This means that it enables the killer time to go over and then pop that generator, if they have pop at a high enough setting. Pop is 40 seconds by default, so if you have this perk at tier 3 and pop at tier 1, you don't get the value of pop for running this perk. In terms of how I think these perks are, Deadman Switch is clearly the best of his perks. It is clearly a B or C tier perk. A good killer, like a Billy, with right perks, could get more value out of this than somebody like a Race. Specifically looking at Gearhead, Gearhead has no value. You could maybe combo it with Pop. I don't see it even being that effective. Hex Retribution only works with other Hex perks. You pretty much need to run either Thrill of the Hunt or Haunted Ground with it, and even then you need a stronger perk to protect, like Huntress or Devour. And looking at Zarina's perks don't particularly wow me either. You have a limited use insta-heal that pretty much works as long as you're not being chased. And for the people, you have basically Diversion and Head-On having a baby, and Distortion and Iron Will having a baby. Neither of these perks are really game-changing, and this one requires team play. So, all in all, I think most of these perks that came out are either band-aid fixes, lazy writing, or just need a rework. So,